Danger Zone. The weekend had worked perfectly. Sure, he had to rely on the skills taught to him by Big Mama, but the ladies always appreciated that, and though the bitch is dead, he's still getting some use out of the monster, although he does make a note to spit in the pit they threw her ashes into. Just remembering the monster sours his mood, which is why he kicks in the speed on his flying platform. He has a few hours before he has to report in, but everyone else has work to do, so he's by himself for a bit. It doesn't have the speed of his fighter, but being open cockpit makes it feel a lot faster. He pushes the machine a bit, dodging and weaving around imaginary obstacles. Sometimes just flying is needed to empty his mind, which then turns him to thinking deeply and pensively. Vuxa is becoming a fortress. Yes, it's better as a well-protected fortress than as the haven for criminals and sadists it used to be. But what is the Duchess so afraid of? Was the Dark Cabal really that bad? He only knew Madame Horny and the Duchess herself to have come through it, and they haven't spoken much about it at all, only stating that it was a living nightmare and leaving it there. Although it had been apparently comparatively worse than those pirates that attacked months ago with the hold full of enslaved Aramenta. According to Franklin, they had been directly inspired by and were emulating the Dark Cabal. Something. His communicator goes off, blaring an emergency signal. He answers immediately. "Who you here?" "Report to your fighter. Unknowns have arrived in system." "Ma'am, yes ma'am." He answers before flipping around and then righting himself as he hits his accelerator to get to base sometime about 10 minutes ago. He hadn't expected his musings to have an answer to them. He didn't want his musings to have an answer to them. Sure, he likes flying, but flying in defense of Vuxa means that his home requires defending, meaning that it's in danger. He arrives in 6 minutes and 32 seconds. He takes off at a dead sprint from where he parks his platform and is climbing into his fighter after another 2.5. By the time he's at the 10-minute mark, he's in his pilot's seat, strapped in and ready to fly. He's only the first to arrive, having been near to the base with his recreational flying. The rest pile in, and before the half-hour mark is hit, Red Squadron is ready to fly. God damn, the waiting is the worst. Velocity grumbles into the chat. "If we're lucky, it's a false alarm," Triple D says. "Training is one thing. If this is the real deal, then..." "Red Squadron, come in. We have a situation update," Ground Control states. "Go ahead, Ground Control," Triple D replies. "We have a situation of 3 capital-class ships. The Frey, the T-92, and the T-67. The Frey is being fired upon and is venting atmosphere. They are attempting to broadcast an emergency signal, but the signal strength suggests even further damage than mere holes in the hull. We've been sending stand-down orders to the T-92 and T-67, but there has been no response. We have threatened retaliation if hostilities do not stop, and they have 1 minute 30 seconds remaining to comply." "Confirmed, standing by," Triple D says, and Hugh starts to wonder what could be going on. One ship running from 2. One's venting atmosphere already and clearly running for help. The other 2 have refused to answer even though they're in someone else's territory. "Red Squadron, launch. Go, go, go." Ground Control commands, and Hugh keeps himself in formation, 5th out of the hangar, and as his sensors really start kicking off. "Hostile craft will be in range of our artillery batteries in T-10 minutes. Your mission is to offer a defensive screen for the Frey, and if you can use your ship's communication network to try and get into proper contact with them. We need to know what the hell is going on. Do not go for kill shots. We need answers, and the dead are hard to question. Weapon and shield systems have priority. Good hunting, pilots." They all kick in their boosters and start heading past the Frey in less than 3 minutes. They pass by close enough for visual range, and Hugh flinches to see the damage. The Frey would be on fire if there was air to burn in space. A massive section that looks like living quarters has been blown to shrapnel, and most of its weapons have been reduced to melted slag. Only one of its 4 engines is operating at full power, and there's an odd energy reading from the rest. Hugh suspects an emergency repair job to keep them moving. Bray, please respond. We are responding to your emergency beacon and have arrived to offer assistance. Please respond. Triple D's communication is on all channels. There is a burst of static as something replies. This is Pirate Territory Hero Boy. Run away home or we'll snatch you up too. Is this the T-92 or T-67 speaking? Triple D's voice has a dangerous tilt to it, a sort of chittering that Drin do when upset. Something Hugh used to fear when Big Mama was still alive. T-67, now get running, little man, and count your blessings. We're after a bigger prize than just 1 or 2 men. The captain of the T-67 says in a purr that tells everyone that it's definitely one of the predatory mammal races. The IFF on the scanner shifts ever so, and in red the indication of the T-67 reads out as primary target. Triple D is clearly pissed, which is fair. Hugh is far from happy himself. There is no communication sent as everyone guns their engines and accelerate directly at the T-67, spreading out and weaving to confuse the sensors and prevent any single shot from boxing them in or forcing them into any direction. The gunners on that ship are not idiots. They open fire more or less immediately. Static crashes over the radio as the T-67 decides to speak with them. Fine then. We can always use more product to sell, although what you boys are doing near Vuxa and still playing hero is beyond me. The game has changed. Fighters attack and contain the T-67. We've got the T-92. A deep and strong voice rings out. And who are you? The captain of the T-67 asks. I am Duke Brent, my battle barons, and I shall be taking the T-92 now. Baron Smith. Open the way, Lord Brent commands, and there's a tearing noise over the line followed by gunfire and screams. The line cuts, and thank goodness for it, as Hugh can scarce afford the distraction. The T-67 seems to have realized that it stepped in it good and deep as it begins opening fire on the squadron with an absolute flurry of lasers with balls of deadly plasma pounding out at seemingly random. Hugh opens up with his burn laser to test the shields around one of the plasma cannons. The shield is up, but the increasing energy reading tells him exactly where the shield projector is. He veers away and quickly preps the magnetic launcher, even as he keeps the shield primed towards energy attacks. He launches the solid rod of death, and it slams into the shield generator. The entire ship's power field fluctuates a little, and before he can turn his fighter around, his fellows have already reduced several plasma cannons into slag. He decides he's not going to waste time and turns his laser on the mounting of another. It drills a hole through the base and cuts off its power supply, shutting down even more weapons. He must have managed to cut the main power line for the entire bank of lasers. That'll be a bitch to repair if they bother taking this ship for salvage. Good shooting, Red 5, Heifer offers. These kinds of weapon arrays are often connected. They're more accurate that way, but more vulnerable as well. Hugh states out loud as he flies in low and not very far over the shields as he moves to attack more of the vessel. He doesn't have to, however, as the IFF shows him that the other flights had been eating at the other portions of the ship and it's already been rendered toothless and crippled. The T-67 is down. All right, you children have had your fun. Return to base. We'll be escorting the Bray the rest of the way and cleaning out the T-67's insides and helping the boys fly the T-92 home. Ground control says, and Hugh lets out a breath he had no idea he'd been holding. Confirmed. Good fighting men, Triple D states. That's IT, Double Tap demands. After all the training we've gone through, that better be it, Chonky remarks. That was too easy, Manic states. After all the training and practice I've been running you boys through, it better be easy, Triple D says, and then lets out a huff of laughter. They were prepped for bigger targets, boys. We did everything exactly as we trained to. We slipped in between the chinks of their armor and between the teeth of their jaws to deliver a death blow. First rounds on me back at base. As they return to Vuxa, they pass in sensor range of several rescue ships, and tugs sent out to help the Bray and Hugh can only hope that whoever's left will be all right. Though he wonders what their story is. They've clearly been moving through dangerous space. Hell, on most maps, Vuxa was dangerous space. But who are the attackers, and what were they doing when they ran into each other? Was this an attack of opportunity, or was this planned out? Was the Bray coming to Vuxa of its own volition, or was it hoping to make an emergency landing? Was it being hounded to Vuxa due to some deal with the former masters of the world? Any number of organizations would have gladly peddled in the flesh and misery of the people on board that ship. Hugh, you're flying a little sloppy. Head in the game. Triple D warns him, and he brings himself back to the here and now. The landing is perfect, but Hugh says little more than what's needed for protocol. He can't help but consider things over and over again and outright pauses partway out of his fighter. Then he's pried off the side by Chonky, who sits him on his shoulder and starts walking. You're a bit on the small side to be pausing when big people are stomping around. The big Platin chides him gently, and Hugh sighs. What's wrong this time? Nothing, we did great. I'm just worried about the Bray and everything it might mean. Things don't happen in vacuum. They literally happened in a vacuum. We were in space. Space is a vacuum. No. I mean, things don't just happen without a reason. I'm wondering about the reasons, Hugh says, and Chonky nods. I'm actually familiar with parts of this. The T-ships are part of a criminal organization with no set base of operations. They sell drugs of all kinds, flesh and weapons wherever there's demand for it. So, it's like they were saying, they were gathering product to sell. Most likely. The drugs that shifted me into a freak were T-series manufactured. All their ships are T-whatever. It's a simple series that actually works to their benefit. The name system is so simple and commonly used that they easily slide into all sorts of background data, Chonky states, and Hugh just goes quiet. I see. Does it hurt? Hugh finally asks him the question that he never really had the courage to ask before. Not anymore. My time on their enhancement drugs left me starving half to death on a full stomach. It wasn't until I started drawing in more and more axiom into myself to just keep myself alive was I able to feel anything other than unending hunger. I got some information based on those who use axiom to remodel themselves and use that to streamline my changes. I could probably shift back into what I used to be if I wanted it, but I don't want to forget. I will not forget the cost being weak and cowardly cost me. I'm not the only one trying to become undaunted. Hugh realizes and gets a pat on the knee by Chonky. We all want it, but we all show it differently. I've bulked up by slowly introducing human physiology into myself and weaning away from axiom dependence. It's still uncomfortable, but I can stay effective. Double Tap's been playing with all sorts of guns. Manic and Velocity are pushing their flying skills harder and harder. Giggles is trying to grow as an axiom adept, and Heifer wants to be an artist in addition to a pilot. Undaunted by our past and moving to the future? Indeed. Some of our stories are more blatantly horrible than others, but there's not a man on Red Squadron that isn't a survivor. I need to pay more attention to my squad mates. We all have our own shit to sort. Besides, you're still barely more than a child. The next oldest pilot could easily be your father. Fat chance of that he was a Cobe. You know what I mean, you little cretin.